Okay, well, I was trying to find a way to like not move because I'm like in the middle of a tanning session. So we're just gonna record it here. Let's talk about Tristan. So basically, Tristan Walker is the founder of Bevel. That is not my dog. He's the founder of Bevel, and Bevel is that razor that was for like the black men. Now, Tristan is like Tope in a sense, or Tope is more like Tristan because Tristan's older. But Tristan went, he was an entrepreneur in residence at A16, I think, or one of the venture capital places in San Francisco. He was like one of the first black male entrepreneurs in residence. So he did that. And then from there, he built Bevel. Okay, so Bevel was huge because Nas started talking about Bevel. And then after Nas, it was like all the black men used Bevel. Bevel and that fucking Bevel blade were very, very popular. Very popular. Um, so yeah, I don't know. Bevel made a lot of money. Tristan told more about his story. He's given a lot of talks about himself. Um, Bevel is like, I think there were a bunch of different cultural relevancies that Bevel had. So because, Tristan was like one of the first black men to be like a solo founder and then to like get financing and then to just be he's like hyper visible in terms of being black and getting money. So if you're in the space you probably know who Tristan is from that. But then there's other things. So Tristan and Laura start Code 2040. That is how I know who Tristan is. Now, for me, I've got to be honest, my story is like, we have to tell the story from my perspective. So we have to talk about, like, I'm not from, Tristan is, I think, he grew up pretty poor in New York. I grew up very upper middle class in California. Okay. In Berkeley specifically. So, like, I had good public schools and I made a transition into tech just to make more money, to make money. And then we could also talk about other socioeconomic things like making a transition into tech after being a stay-at-home mom, but that's not, I just don't think that's relevant. I never told anyone as I was doing that was what I was doing because I just felt like it was irrelevant. We already had enough, identity markers on the table. Like, you can't have every struggle. You feel what I'm saying? Like, shit, I already had quite a lot of, checks in the box. Anyway, so, yes. So I do Code 2040. I learn all about Tristan, his story. I learn all about Laura and her story. And after Code 2040, what year was this? I think this might have been 2020. So I have my family history, and I've said this lightly, but we'll just go into it briefly. My uncle was a harmonica player. His name is Little Walter. Beyonce made a movie called Cadillac Records, and in that movie, she told the story of Little Walter. So if you've seen that movie and you see the person with the harmonica, that guy, well, that was my uncle. And so when I talk about my grandmother and how she was living off an inheritance, her real inheritance came from Little Walter because he made, like, if you know who Muddy Walters is, he's like a very classic blues singer. Muddy Walters was the mentor of Little Walter. They were very close. And So, I mean, that they're very old, so I'm not expecting people here to know who those people are. If you did watch The Cosby Show, though, there were quite a lot of references to Muddy Waters and the blues in general. But, it was really interesting to see that movie come out because my grandma did not like Beyoncé as an artist, as a person. It was just it was an ick from my family members. But Little Walter also has a daughter who, when he died, she ended up getting most of his royalty checks, so my grandma got cut off anyway. So there could have been beef with that. But while he was alive, and while my grandma, was kind of a young woman, because he was earning so much, like her and all of her sisters had a very good lifestyle for a very long time. So I can only talk about that, but let's go back to Tristan. In so growing up, obviously not obviously, but I had all of this context about music, right? Because like the music industry was just a part of my family lineage, and I've talked about this before. But my brother, his aunt is we have different fathers, but on his father's side, his father's sister is Karen White, who's a pretty popular singer. I've talked about her before. My mom is very close with them and always goes to her shows when she comes to California. I am not close with him at all. I'm also not close with my brother, but I feel like there might be people here who actually know who Karen White is. She had a moment. I feel like she was around when kind of like Tony Braxton or whoever those people are were, a thing. So Karen had a moment. I was never a fan, but it was really cool when I was little to go to her house in LA. It was like in the hills and shit. They're really just wealthy, going to like black academic parties. When I talk about those things, I'm not talking about them from being outside of the room. I'm talking about being inside of the room. I'm not positive about this, but I also know my cousin George, who's like he was a bodybuilder for a while, and Bill Cosby was always at his events. So I feel like I have some photos when I was little with Bill Cosby. Like Bill Cosby was heavy in the black academic spaces. I will say that for whatever he was doing, that was like gross and all that shit. Like he was a complete black academic. So there was that. That was a very real part of his existence in real life. So that does not have anything to do with Tristan either, but I did an entrepreneur in residence stint with Universal Music Group. That came to be because when I was working with Facebook, we did this what did we do? We were like we were sponsoring an event or something that happened at South by Southwest, which is like a music festival. I only know what that is because I saw a YouTube video where Amy Winehouse performed there, and that was everything. I love Amy Winehouse so much. So anyway, we sponsored an event, and like I this is right after I went to Africa with Matt. We then went from Tunisia to Austin to go to South by in the same trip. And so he was basically doing all the stuff that was in regard to like hosting the event. And so we were like at this pitch competition, and I guess we were giving out some of the prizes, but like I didn't really have to do anything because I was like Matt's wingman in a sense, and so I just participated in the competition. So I joined a group and we won. Like we built this thing called a contextual music search, and we ended up winning. So the point is to try to like look through UMG's catalog and basically be able to use these a recommendation engine to recommend music to new artists, and that's we built a prototype for a thing that built that. And a part of winning that prize was being able to participate in this entrepreneur in residence space with UMG. So we got to go to LA. We got to go to Universal Music Group. We got to like, interview a bunch of people, kind of see behind the scenes. I met like Frank Ocean's music producer. That was really cool. We got to sit in on studio sessions, all these things like that. So while I'm doing this, I was like emailing Tristan, and I'm like, I'm doing this right now. I was asking him for tips about shit. What should I do? Like, what what do you think I should do in this meeting? What should I say? Things like that. Because he was like the smartest guy I feel like I knew at that time. So I was like, I don't know why. I think that Tristan would know what to do. I don't know. I use my own context, right? I was like, given what I know about this dude and where he's come from and what he knows, he's like my Jay-Z. So I'm gonna ask him what's to. So that was actually really cool. That's kind of the only Tristan story I have. But yeah, so it was really dope when he came out to San Francisco when I was doing Code 2040 and he like talked to us and I took that picture. I'll always remember that picture. Um, I feel like Tristan in my real life is like Jay-Z to like a lot of people. He's like that. I looked at him like that for me. I was like, wow, this dude's like really cool. He just seems like really smart, really knowledgeable, really like accomplished. I just felt like, yo, Tristan is like that dude. You know what I mean? Like, so